I think it's rather obvious that the work should, I don't call it sculpture incidentally, that the work should sit on the floor or sit on the ground, and that any other arrangement is the same as putting the picture in a frame. So to me it was logical to put the work directly on the floor, in contrast to all previous three-dimensional work, or sculpture so-called, which had been on pedestals. Which really comes back to putting the figure on a pedestal. So just as the picture in a frame is obsolete, the figure on the pedestal is obsolete. I wouldn't be able to run around the world having exhibitions in very strange spaces if I didn't have a situation that was permanent, where the work looked normal and right to me. So this is my trade-off. I lose a lot of pieces because they have to be sold. And it's very important to me to maintain a balance between what I can keep and what I have to sell. And if you sell it, it always ends up in bad circumstances. And so it's important to have some of it in the proper circumstances, which can only be here and in the building in New York, too. Well, I don't think art is show business, and it's not commerce. When it's produced, generally when it's around someone's studio, it's in a very different situation than when it's in a museum or a gallery. And the attitude and the architecture of museums and galleries is very different from the original attitude of the work. And in a way, it's a falsification of the work. If you put paintings by Pollock or Rothko or Barnett Newman into the Museum of Modern Art, which is a relatively modern fascist building, you put them in a fascist context. And that's bound to change people's attitude toward the art and make it look different. Generally, expensive art is in expensive, chic circumstances. It's a falsification. The society is basically not interested in art. Art has an integrity of its own and a purpose of its own. And it's not to serve the society. That's been tried now in the Soviet Union and lots of places, and it doesn't work. The only role I can think of, in a very general way, for the artist is it tends to shake up the society a little bit just by its existence, in which case it helps undermine the general political stagnation, and perhaps by providing a little freedom. There's no such thing as public art, because if you're making public art, you're making a monument for George Bush or something. Architecture and art are not the same thing. Naturally, it's very important in the architecture that there is a function. Or to violate the function is simply to be ridiculous. And it's one of the reasons why architects are so fond of museums, because they don't think there's a function. The art isn't anything to them. So therefore they can make very strange shapes and be the artists themselves. And this produces a very awful Disneyland situation.